So this is the lecture series is initiative of the Dean of Art and Design, Joanne Arbuckle, and the Dean of Graduate Studies, Mary Davis. It brings together industry leaders in sustainable fashion practices, as well as friends and collaborators of the Ethical Fashion Initiative. The EFI is a UN program that connects and enables artisans in developing countries to work directly with top fashion brands on an ongoing basis. Having worked with some of the most innovative fashion designers around the world, the EFI have developed a set of pioneering sustainable practices for the fashion industry. Simone Cipriani is the founder of the EFI, and he discusses the various aspects of sustainability in fashion through conversations with key industry experts, managers, and designers. Simone founded and manages the Ethical Fashion Initiative, which is a flagship program of the International Trade Center, a joint agency of the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. I thought this evening, because I know there are many familiar faces here, I'd share some of Simone's background instead of reiterating the same information about the EFI. So Simone actually began his career working in the Italian shoe and leather industry before working for UNIDO to develop viable leather industries in Kenya and Ethiopia. He has consulted for a host of UN and international agencies, and as such brings a deep understanding of quality and production to the Ethical Fashion Initiative. So Simone is here this evening with Lisa Barratt. She's a Zimbabwean, born in Zimbabwe, and has been entrepreneurial in developing systems to enable artisans a platform to engage in international fashion markets. Lisa has led the operations of the Ethical Fashion Initiative in Kenya for the past 6 years to make the inclusion of marginalized artisans to the international value chain of fashion and sustainability a reality. Her experience in working with groups and structuring the systems of trade to develop compliance schemes that are practical in the artisan sector and have been invaluable to the success of the Ethical Fashion Initiative. Lisa is taking the lead in the development of a framework for the Ethical Fashion Initiative that assesses the impact of the work in the project sectors. So welcome both Simone and Lisa, and I will hand it over to Simone. Thank you.
And almost immediately, Lisa joined us. We started practically together with you, with Chloe. Where is Chloe? With Chloe, and we were the three of us. When we started that, we had the problem, as we work now for a development agency for the UN, we had the problem of proving the impact of what we do. And we discovered that almost nobody was assessing the impact, was measuring the impact of trade in the poor communities that are involved in these trade promotion activities. So we set up a system to measure this impact, a system which is used by social workers. Most of these social workers are embedded into the communities of the artisans, a system that measures how the life of people in the communities where the artisans live and operate changes. But then we discovered that this is a function of how you structure your work with people. So we adopted the Fair Labor Agenda once and for all. One thing is the Fair Labor Agenda, one thing is fair trade. Fair Labor Agenda is a very complete agenda on working conditions. It's based on the standards of the International Labour Office. It's implemented by all those who want to offer fair, just, dignified working conditions. It's about the remuneration of labor. It's about non-discrimination in the workplace. It's about no child work. It's about paid overtime. It's about all those conditions which make work a dignified activity and not exploitation, health and safety and so on, insurance and so on. By applying the Fair Labor Agenda, we immediately saw that we were producing an impact. We saw that the life of people involved in this kind of trade gradually changed. And so, with Lisa and with her team, we started measuring this impact order by order, not 1 year after another, but the impact of every single order received by the fashion brands that work with us. And then we discovered that by measuring this impact, by implementing the fair labor agenda, we were naturally led to implement environmental standards, because this is about protecting people in the communities, inside the workplace. And then we discovered that we had a lot of stories about the people involved in these processes, about the change in their lives. And then we discovered that we could also put all this information together in order to see what happens in every single stage of the supply chain. This is called traceability, where products are made, who made these products, what's the impact of this on the life of the workers. So we tried to bring all this together in a system that we have called RISE, which means respect, invest, sustain, empower. It's a system that tries to measure the impact of your work on people, but at the same time, that gives a clear idea of the standards that you have applied, that gives a clear idea of where things have been made, which is to say traceability, that gives you a clear idea of the resources that you have invested to make it possible. So this RISE is more than a standard. It's not a standard. The world is full of standards. Full of standards. There are too many standards. And then you have the Rana Plaza. Rana Plaza building had been audited on the basis of the standards. It had passed the audit. It's not a CSR scheme, corporate social responsibility. It's more than that. It's a management system. Good management is managing resources in order to bring about good. And one form of good is the way in which you treat people in your supply chain. So RISE is a system that enables you to track all the processes and to be sure that you manage your resources in order to achieve good. Lisa is the person that in our team has worked most on this. She's responsible for RISE. She's responsible for all the impact assessment that we do. She's also responsible for our success story in Kenya, the first place where we started working now many years ago, although we are so young. And so I want you to listen to Lisa. You are not going to learn about a new certification scheme. You are not going to learn about a new standard. You are not going to learn about some rubbish on CSR. You are going to learn how to frame your work in a supply chain in such a way that the outcome of your work is good. Good for people, good for the environment. Lisa, up to you. I go into the public.
Thank you. Evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. And it's wonderful to be here. And thank you for including us, SAS. I'm going to start with this video and put it into context. That's an extract from the Human series on YouTube, and there's insights into lots of different realities, just to give credit to that video. So, RISE, when we start with impact, impact is an outcome of activities. So, if you're going for a run, what is the impact of that run? Do you get fitter? Do you lose weight? Do you just get exhausted? That's what, from running, you're going to have an impact, just to put it into simple terms. So to start with, you can't just dive in and say, this is going to be my impact. this is what I'm going to achieve. Even all of you sitting here are studying to achieve something, an impact. But there's a process to go through to achieve that. And a lot of what we're saying is CSR schemes will come and just say, this is what we need to do because that's what we're going to end up putting out there and claiming is our impact, and we've ticked a box. What we've developed with this RISE is not just to tick a box, it's a complete process so that the impact that is resulting from the work that we do in the field and that you take away from tonight's session is to just think about what is the impact of what you're doing. You are all potential change agents in the industry of fashion. You're attending this lecture series on sustainable fashion. And if you're thinking about the processes that you are going to implement in your careers, you are change agents for sustainability. So RISE starts with respect, invest, sustain, and empower. The R, respect, is about understanding the conditions of work and the people. Now, any impact assessment or any starting point of, if you're wanting a good impact, is to understand the baseline. Where are you starting from? And that video that we showed at the beginning was an indication of that's the baseline. We interview people, we take assessments of people's conditions of work. Where are they? Where are they at the stages in their life? If they earn money, can they eat tomorrow? How much more do they need to live sustainably and in a dignified way? So any operation if you're wanting to get an impact and give a report on impact, you have to start with a baseline. Where is the starting point for your intervention? So we use the Fair Labour Code of Conduct and have adapted it also from the formal sector into a informal sector tool. So you can measure the realities in context of people that have no hope. And what does that work mean to those people? So the Fair Labour baseline is a very thorough assessment. Do people even know what fair is? Do they realize that if in many places in the world that people are working, not only in Africa, they actually don't realize that they are being forced to work. So a lot of training and everything goes into the Fair Labour Code of Conduct and just understanding what is the starting point for us to work towards. The second element is looking at the business. For this whole system, no change can really happen without trade. Many people will say to us, well, thanks very much for telling me about no harassment and abuse, but I need to feed my family. So a key component of working in this arena of sustainability is the business that operates, the social enterprise in the areas that we work. And a lot of monitoring goes into the operations. And all this is captured in a systemic, methodological way to be able to report back and feed back into also your activities. And how have your interventions compared against your baseline? Then we go into the environmental component, which is all about the environmental sustainability. And again, starting with a baseline assessment. Do people even understand the concept of reusing, reducing, refusing to work with some materials? And designers, if you're coming through and producing collections, have you thought about how can things be refused, reused? And should you take responsibility to refuse to work with material that you know has consequences down the line? And you will only know of those consequences if you've looked at the traceability and you understand the supply chain of those raw materials that you're using, for example. Do you know the consequences of asking someone to grind a piece of metal What happens to all the metal shards that get thrown around? Have you thought about that? It's our role to be able to put that awareness into the people in the industry that are doing these skills. And at the end of all of that, we can then assess the impact. What has the work done in the field? So what are we tracing? So again, the people involved, the business entities, what materials are used in the supply chain, the Fair Labour Code of Conduct, environmental compliance, and again, the impact. Now, also when we're talking about impact, it's about having a set of indicators that you are measuring against. So at every stage of in sustainability, knowing the supply chain is key. So if this is just an example. So we'll look at the cotton farmer. What are the challenges they're living under the whole way along the supply chain? And understanding what are the risks at each stage of the supply chain. And under each thing, if there is a risk, in fair labour, in environmental, we've got an assessment to actually score that. So is it a high risk? And it's not a pass or fail, you're doing that, and that's very high risk. It's an awareness of that operation being a potential high risk, and we try and bring the score down to make it a lower risk in terms of if it's health and safety, if it's a pay issue, working with the participants. So if you're going to measure in impact, you need to know what are you measuring, what are your indicators. So if you're going for a run, I'll use that example, is it an indicator an increased heart rate? Is it weight loss? Is it a boyfriend, a girlfriend? How are you going to measure the impact of that activity? And these indicators can change within the projects. The indicators that we look at in RISE are related to environmental performance, the social responsibility, skills and development capacity building, equality and empowerment, how many women are engaged in the order, and all those issues. The market access, health and nutrition, income and saving, access to education. Now, to select your indicators is all-encompassing of, if you look at all those factors, that's what we know and through experience understand will make us reliable and sustainable supply chain. So how do we capture this impact? We go into the field. I've got some examples of some bags that have recently been launched by MIMCO in Australia. How do you get that impact? You all are carrying a bag, I'm sure, today. Do you know where it was made? Who made it? What was the impact of that unit on the person's life that made it? Hopefully you leave this evening thinking about that. Everything you look at in your shops outside has been made by someone. Someone has handled that. What is the impact? Is it a good impact or a negative impact? So to go into the field, these days we have tablets, and the assessments are on the tablets, and the questions have been set according to those indicators of how many children do you have. So if you're looking at health and nutrition, it's how many meals a day did you have before you started working, and now that you've been engaged with some orders doing some beading, how many meals are you able to have? Did you start with one meal and you're now able to have 2 meals a day? Or what was the component of your meal? So it's understanding all the questions that go into and assessing and engaging with your suppliers of what are you wanting to measure. In the Ethical Fashion Initiative, Why are we doing all of this? It's to raise awareness and to spread the word of responsible fashion. And by doing this, we have a RISE tag attached to every product with a QR code, and that will take you to the impact assessment online, which gives you the data behind the order and will lead you into the stories, the videos about who made the products and how they were made, where they were made. We're working on developing a clear traceability click and play function, and so you, the consumers, can demand this from your buyers. It starts with the consumers buying from brands that are being more transparent in their supply chain. So this example of the impact that comes through and is available online and takes you to a map. You could see the suppliers, the traceability, more information about material sourcing, and all the other indicators that you are going to look at in your area of work. And then we're going to, again, we will then open it up to the floor. There's a short video to put on.
We do the questions.
Hang on, I'm not.
We notice one thing. We notice one thing. First of all, two things. As I told you, it's a management tool to organize your mind on how you use the resources you have. And secondly, it's a tool to speak to consumers, straight to consumers. Do a test. You go to a shop, and when you buy something, ask the story of the product. You will see almost nobody can tell you the story of the product. They tell you this is done to do good, but what's the real story behind this product? Where can I see this story? Where can I find it? And the shop assistants will be extremely embarrassed. Also because a shop assistant has got to sell, doesn't have the tools to know all this. This label enables people with a click, with a smartphone, to see the story. So you cut through all the retail and everything straight to the consumers. It's also a marketing tool. But it's a marketing tool because you tell a story in an objective way and you offer some metrics, measurement of what you say. So we start with the questions. There are
Kwa majina naitwa Josephine Shongo. Nafanya kazi ya Mimco kwa upande wa kushona ushanga.
Majina ni Lea Shongo. Nafanya kazi ya Mimco.
Kwa majina ninaitwa Lea Parsitau. Mimi ninafanya tunafanya kazi pamoja na Mimco. Na mimi nimesaidika kwa kazi ya Mimco. Imetusaidia tukaendelea na hiyo vikundi. Kazi ya manyumba imekuwa mzuri. Sasa shida ya pesa imekuwa sio mbaya katika pande zetu. Tangu tupate hiyo kazi tuko sawa kabisa. Mimi nimesaidika sana na kazi ya Mimco. Na kazi ya chakula pia tumekuwa sawa sawa sasa. Kwa sababu imenisaidia kupata pesa ya kuelimisha watoto. Kwa hivyo sisi tumeona imetusaidia sana. Na ikiwezekana tunaomba tu iendelee mbele kwa sababu imetuinua kama sisi wa mama.
That's on. So seeing that in the video, that's that, and that's the story, and that's woman talking about the impact, and the data behind that impact is available and readable and put substance behind that. As Simone said, this is what we should be demanding in the shops. So we know the supply chain. We know that's responsible. And with responsibility is resulting sustainability, both in the environment and with the people. So thanks very much. And any questions? It's a snapshot of starting to a baseline, taking you through to an impact.
Your side.
Hi. Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for this great presentation. I'm really impressed with the RISE label because I think consumers really need to understand and have a choice of what they want to purchase and really know what's happening in the supply chain. My question is, how many companies are actually using the RISE label, and what are the types of commodities that are included in that category?
At the moment, the label is used with the products that come out of the Ethical Fashion Initiative projects, and we are looking at extending it to network of artisanally based projects in United Arrows, Stella McCartney, Vivienne Westwood, Mimco, Karen Walker. These are Karen Walker. So these impact assessments are available online. We've just used that as an example. The stories of the women, the brass makers, the bone makers. The artisanal products are so rich. And why we also have focused on the system of compliance and impact is that many customers and even buyers are kind of scared by working with artisans. It's a bit of an unknown. They are essentially what we call the informal sector. So can they be reliable? Is the quality there? And so a system of RISE gives an assurance to the buyers and to the brands that there is monitoring while these products are being made. There is a system of compliance that is relevant to the context. You saw ladies sitting under trees. We're not going to go in there and say everyone needs to be sitting at a desk with a 90-degree angle and a chair. It's not how they do it. So you can't just apply traditional health and safety in some informal settings. So we've really looked at the standards that are out there, but applied them in context. And your question is, as many brands that can adopt this and do this, that would be fantastic.
But the aim to create RISE was not to create another standard or another certification scheme. The aim is to use the existing standards to prove what you do. So somebody else can come with another RISE that you call, as we were joking together, plug, or in another way, or you call it Lisa, or you call it Simone, and it's fine. And it's fine, provided that it supplies a clear understanding of the story behind the product. The standards are available for everybody. Everybody can use it. I repeat, the aim is not to create another certification scheme. It's to create a system to show things.
Okay, thank you.
It's all right. It's a pleasure. And other questions? Don't be lazy. You don't have Lisa every time. She's based in Kenya. She's busy. You've got a question there? Are you standing because you have a question? Ask the question. To engage in RISE or to engage in the Ethical Fashion Initiative?
A retailer to implement this program, how much is it to, like, is it a substantial investment for a retailer to become part of the program?
To become part of the ethical fashion, to become part of the Ethical Fashion Initiative, to have the RISE tag. Okay.
The value chain, the investment that the buyer actually makes is sending work to the artisans and placing orders through the network of social enterprises that the Ethical Fashion Initiative has. And this is a value added that the buyer gets. And the buyer also appreciates if they can sell more of these units, because it's got a tag with a wonderful story. So that is a promotion for them. And if they sell more work will reach the artisans and the social enterprises in a credible way because of the system. So they're not paying for it. We are a UN entity that has implemented this, and it's so that more work, that chat that you saw, the start video, receives work from many brands and embraces the compliance. As I said, everyone in this room is a potential change agent. So is every artisan that we're working with. Because through engaging in a value chain such as fashion, these artisans and ladies beading have learned so much that this product probably isn't even telling you in terms of quality. What does straight mean? We did have a keyring of a map of Africa, and we actually had to do literacy and geography lessons that they didn't really understand what was the shape. So it was an international buyer that thought it would be very cool to do a map of Africa, and that led to lessons on geography and what the world looked like to illiterate people. So when you're reaching that target through fashion and through these products that are made through the ethical fashion, that is the payback, if that answers your question.
Again, we didn't want to create another certification scheme in which artisans have to pay or people have to pay. There are too many of them. And some of them are really a burden, because you've got, as an artisan, if you want to be part of this, you want to be part of that, you've got to pay, you've got to blah, blah. This is free, but you've got to bring about work and you've got to pay people well. That's the baseline. If you do that, you get everything. And if you bring enough work, you even get a video, you get everything. But you've got to bring work and to bring decent work. The other side there.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I was wondering, based on your knowledge, do you think multinationals like Zara could change their ways into being sustainable and keep profitable margins? And if so, how many years do you think it would take for them to achieve that?
You need a crystal sphere and you need to be a wizard to answer this question. I'm not Harry Potter, and although I look like Albus Silente, and maybe I have the same age, Silente is in Italian because my kids were small when so Dumbledore. I look like Dumbledore, and I probably have the same age. I don't know how long it takes for multinational companies to go there. I don't know it. I cannot know it. But what I know is that consumers every day are more aware of the level of injustice that you have in this world, and are completely fed up. They are fed up of listening to the news of disasters and this and that. So this is pushing everybody to change behavior. You see things that you didn't see before. You see, for instance, a big international company, which is very serious on all these things, is Patagonia. Absolutely serious. A company which was created since the very beginning to bring about good business. And they're very serious. They even disclose the mistakes they make and the problems they have, because they're very transparent. So, and another one that has engaged many times to be transparent is Nike. Very, very transparent. So it's something which is really changing. And then there's another issue. You have in Europe in these days the refugee crisis. It's something unbelievable. I live in Europe. Something unbelievable. You've never seen anything like this in history. It's a mountain of people coming, but a good deal of these people are not refugees from war. There are the refugees and so on. They are economic migrants, people who run away from lack of opportunities. And all these people run away because in the countries where they live, work is not dignified work. And this is changing everything. People are realizing the importance of that. I think there's a danger in there. In the West, let's say it's a bad way to define in rich countries, consumers are aware. In countries that arrive now to wealth, the BRICS and so on, consumers are less aware. So much so that all these big companies, they are investing in there to sell there. Because there is lower consumer awareness, but it will come. Because we live in the age of social media. Everything is visible, everything is transparent. So sooner or later it will come. How long it takes? Bo. If it took 2 days, I would be the happiest person on earth. Probably I won't see the complete change within the time span of my life. But I know that this is the direction. Then there's another issue. Even if you know that it takes a very long time and that you won't see the results of this in your lifespan, it's equally beautiful to engage. To engage for something which is right is the most beautiful thing you can do in life. Even if you don't see the results of that. Do you need to see the results to do good? Come on. That side there.
Yes, hi, I'm Kayon Watson. Thank you both for sharing your knowledge. I have 2 questions. Are you planning on bringing the RISE to other countries outside of Kenya? And the other question is, with your 4 components, were there any local people that were involved in making of the decisions? Not decisions, but the system itself. Working in international development and in fashion, often seeing people coming outside, this is a great idea, let's make it fit for you, versus what are you thinking, what are you doing, let's collaborate, let's make it work for both of us.
Absolutely. RISE is applied across the ethical fashion projects, so also from fabrics coming from Burkina Faso and Mali, products from Haiti, shoes and leather products from Ethiopia, and scarves from Nepal, and silk from Cambodia. So it's used in my many projects. And very good question about engaging the local people and the artisans. The fair labor approach, particularly in the R and the respect, is participatory, and so it's been very much developed with practical experience of working in the field and understanding what needs to be done. So in fair labor engagement, what are we've said the minimums that a group should implement, and those monitoring standards or the monitoring system that we've put in place has been working with those supervisors. Josephine, who you saw in the video, is a group supervisor, and when we've gone in and discussed even sort of children and the issue of child labor, what does that mean to them? Because many of the Maasai lady women, they learn the skill of beading at age 8. So we're not walking there and saying, no child labor. You've got to understand the context of why are there children in that work environment. A lot of the skills that we use, are more deft and more advanced, but it's these cultural intricacies that we have engaged the local people to work. And throughout the process, it's not, as we said, a pass and fail. It's an understanding awareness approach with the people to develop it.
The impact assessment system, which is the first one, was developed in Kenya with community people, community leaders, with social workers, with Kenyans. It was developed in Kenya by Kenyans. Also Lisa is a local person because she was born in Africa. Her mother was born in Africa. She looks like a Norwegian lady, but she's an African lady.
Thank you. My name is Dom. Hi. How do the buyers evaluate the RISE brand, and are they in this process led to see the benefit in terms of revenue?
Yeah, they evaluated positively. At the very beginning, they were a bit worried. What is this? Is it another certification scheme? Is it a CSR thing? What is that? And then they saw it's such a straightforward thing. And so now we have the problem that they are always asking for the RISE tags, the RISE labels, and they ask for more information, and they ask for more videos, and they ask for more photos. In some cases, we have to limit them, and we have to say, look, calm down, we are going to get back to you. They see the buyers that use it in the Ethical Fashion Initiative, they see it well. Of course, again, Ethical Fashion Initiative is a small word. It's not the entire industry of fashion. So it would be nice to see this RISE thing also adopted by somebody else outside the Ethical Fashion Initiative, or tested by somebody else outside our network. And this is the work of Lisa. This morning we had a meeting with an organization in New York that supports the work of the artisans and so on, and we have decided to join forces in order for also them to use this system in all their projects. An organization that supports artisans to work with the industry of fashion.
Sounds like a good problem if they're asking for our labeling. Here in New York, there's an initiative called Made in NYC, and the same kind of thing, bringing into relevance something that's made locally here. Yeah, that sounds good.
It's that. We love leather.
Thank you.
We don't do it because we are leather people. We have a dialogue on leather with this gentleman.
Hello, my name is Melissa. I'm wondering, so do the artisans that you work with, are they mostly, they're already working in those practices, and then you just kind of link them up with designers to kind of show what they're already doing, or are the designers teaching the artisans how to do other things? Yeah, the skills are introduced to the designers. The designers a portfolio of skills is available, and so you can say in a region that you're working, you can do screen printing, embroidery, stitching, carving, pom-pom making, macrame, crochet, and those skills actually already exist. And there are groups of people that have been doing it. A lot of, like, for example, beading is just a culturally, it's a association. If you get married, initiation, the men wear the beads, and it's been a long-time cultural activity of many of the people doing it. And what this has done is bring those skills into an international value chain and use those skills, adapt to the skills. The designers come in and see the skill, and I say I have lived in Africa all my life, and these international designers come in and make beautiful products that even the people who're making them haven't thought of combining those, either combining skills and materials in a very creative way, or teaching different patterns and techniques that it's something you can't not assume that they're just going to know. Like even culture, the Maasai particularly didn't want to put black and blue beads next to each other because in their culture, the different color beads mean different things. And so you're trying to teach them that it's okay if a designer wants to put black and blue beads next to each other. So to answer your question, the groups, what happens is the designers come and approach a social enterprise that knows of groups that are, or individuals that have the skills, and then the structure emerges over time through work, through the trade, engaging with the artisans to produce the products. And is RISE, oh sorry.
I think you are quite new to these lectures, because at the very beginning of the lectures, months ago, we explained our system of work, so it may be a bit confusing for you. We speak about social enterprise and so on, and we take for granted that you know the system. I really recommend you to go to the website of the Ethical Fashion Initiative, ethicalfashioninitiative.org, and to go to see how we engage with fashion brands, because that's a structured system. First of all, the skills available, then a project of a collection is developed, then there's an intermediary in between the artisans and the designers, which is a social enterprise that we co-manage, which is a trade entity, and then there is capacity building and technical assistance. There's a structured system, you are right. It's not that people just come at random. And the other thing is that they've got to remain with us for seasons. Vivienne Westwood has been with us for 13 consecutive seasons. Every season we have to develop a collection. Chloe, the website is ethicalfashioninitiative.org, isn't it?
Cool. Thank you so much.
It's all right. It's a pleasure. Go to the website and feel free to write to get more information. It's you.
Hi. Oh, I'm wondering if my question is going to be the same thing. So I actually work for, it's not a small and like designer, but we're not large. We're like in retailers, and I've actually approached them several times with becoming more sustainable like this, but they always come back to me saying profit is an issue. They're open to it, but they're like, how can we sustain ourselves money-wise? And I'm just wondering, like, how does that play with the guys that you work? Like, is that, like, how, yeah, I guess what's the profit, basically?
How do we support the artisans? How does
yeah, so, the companies themselves, it's like, are they making money? Because that's always the issue. Like, they don't want to invest in something that they're not going to really
So we work with artisans in Africa, Haiti, international fashion brands, okay? Yeah. The brands develop with us through this system a collection per season, which is produced by these artisans.
Yeah.
So the brands support themselves with the sales, the artisans support themselves with the sales of this good to the brands. So it's a system which is all based on trade. And, and when they don't work with us with international brands, they work for the local market. Because an artisan is an artisan who can use the skills in the international trade and local market. So it's a system which supports itself through trade. We don't put money to pay people. We don't put, our money is just to do capacity building, market development, and then the communication.
Oh.
That's all.
So it's just like, what would it cost to, like, if somebody wanted to get, like, they're like, oh, I want to use like one of your artisans for...
You want to use our artisans, you've got to be a brand with the capacity to do product development and to respect our minimum quantities. When you engage with artisans, when you engage with our system, for instance, in the case of these bags, we ask the brands to produce at least 300 bags per design. So if you have the capacity to do the product development and to engage in the minimum quantities, you are welcome. If you don't have this possibility, we cannot do it because it's a system that has to support itself through trade.
So yeah, I'm saying if you are in that position where you can do that...
you just come and we start a dialogue.
Okay, but I guess because they were just like, what's the profit margin? And I don't, like, I'm sure...
The profit margin for whom? For the artisans or for the brands?
The brands.
Well, you ask the brands, ask Vivienne Westwood, go to see the balance sheet of Vivienne Westwood and the profit and loss account of Vivienne. Yeah. And it's the profit margin of fashion, sorry.
Yeah.
It's normal. Okay. This is work, this is normal work. It's not different from what is the work in this industry. This is trade. Yeah. It's trade, and trade pays for things, and there are the margins here and there. What we ensure is that the artisans have a fair remuneration for their labor and have a labor which is so dignified to allow them to have a dignified and a flourishing life. And we measure the impact of this. And no other there, it's your turn.
Ciao, Simone.
Ciao.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Cici Johnson from the Huffington Post.
Yeah.
So congratulations on RISE. I think it's a great initiative. And actually, you talked about it a few months ago at the United Nations, so that's where I first heard about it. Yeah. You mentioned a few times the word marketing, and you say it's a marketing tool, right? And speaking of...
It's also a marketing tool.
Sorry?
It's also a marketing tool.
It's also a marketing tool. Okay, and speaking of marketing, my question was, about imagery. Imagery, yeah. Pictures and videos, yeah. Right? You used some very powerful imagery at the beginning of the presentation. We watched a video, and then there was a second one. My question is the dramatic portrayal of Africa or Africans, in a way, is a necessity to raise awareness?
No, it's not. At the very beginning of the presentation, Lisa used that very powerful movie to explain the importance of good work and so on. but it's not in our communication. It's not part of any of our communication. You won't find that movie there on our website and so on. Usually what we try to convey is a message of joy. Is a message of joy, of self-reliance, of development. I always tell everybody, people tell me, you work in Africa, you see so many bad things. No, I see a lot of beautiful things. I meet a lot of beautiful people, and I meet artisans who are like the artisans I used to see when I was a boy in Italy with the artisans who worked for Ferragamo and so on. So much so that one day we were in a New York Times luxury conference years ago. Franca Sozzani, the editor of Vogue Italia, a colleague of yours, was asked, where is couture today? And she was in Rome, you can imagine, and she said, it's in Africa. It's in Africa, with the African artisans, with the African designers. It's what I bring in my heart is a mountain of joy. Then you also bring the difficult moments. Then but they are everywhere.
Of course.
Everywhere. People ask us about the terrorism. But you work in Mali, but you work here, you work there. That's not only that, there's much more than that. Come to Africa, come to work in Africa. It's the place of the future if you work in fashion.
Yeah, I'm very glad you said that, because there's this whole movement online about rebranding Africa. And if I'm sure you're on Instagram, and there's some very powerful imagery around that. And I was going to say, it would be counterproductive to, kind of push that imagery only to,
completely 100% agree with you. Completely. I couldn't agree more.
Va bene. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to finish. We thank Lisa for being here because she's bloody busy. She's bloody busy and she accepted to come. We'll see Lisa more in New York in the future.
We're honored to have the continued support of Simone Cipriani and the Ethical Fashion Initiative and these really important guests such as Lisa Barratt. So thank you for coming here and thank you all.
Thank you very much. Hey guys, see you in April you have the owner of Camper, the shoes, and the creator of United Arrows, the coolest brand for men's fashion in Japan. A person who's created a brand just to work with us. You've got two super people. Tell your friends and come.